All right, it looks like we are live and our speaker has just disappeared. Hopefully he's going to go grab some more coffee or something. But let's get started on our Merge PHP March 2025 meetup. So as a reminder, if you're new here, we are Merge PHP, a collaboration of user groups that meets the second Thursday every month, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Here's all our logos. We come from all across North America, even stretching up into Vancouver, Canada. Every month, we raffle off a one-year license for any JetBrains product, and that even includes the All Products Pack. So if you're looking for a license for a new editor, please email chris@atlantaphp.org. And you can, if you're the first one, you will score yourself a license. Just as a reminder, every month we like to show you where we are in the active PHP support. So if you are on 8.1, you have until the end of the year to get off that, or you're going to lose out on security update support. 8.2 is also in maintenance only, or sorry, security only mode, but you do have till the end of January or December 2026 for that one. Obviously, if you're here, you enjoy continuous learning, and just want to show that there are several upcoming conferences that are PHP related coming up throughout the rest of the year on both sides of the pond here. So if you're looking to do some more learning, and especially if you can get your boss to pay for that ticket and some of the travel, you might be able to get yourself a nice vacation in there too. We are on the socials. We're both on Mastodon, YouTube, and that old thing called X. So please, if you want to help spread the word, retweet us or share one of our posts or stories on there. As always, we're going to talk about next month, which is TBD. Our topic is MIA, but hopefully we'll have an answer for you PDQ about what we will be sharing next month. But I can assure you that it will be something PHP related. If you have a talk idea for next month or any other months, visit that URL or hit us up on one of the socials and let us know what you want to see. You can either share us an idea of something you want us to find a presenter for, or if you have an idea of something you're ready to present, let us know and we can work you into our schedule. So this month, we're going to be hearing from Josh Copeland, who's going to be talking about WordOps, WordPress management. Josh is the organizer of the Vegas PHP tech group. Did I say that right, Josh?
Good enough. Vegas programmers, aka PHP Vegas.
Yeah. Okay. I was expecting the comments to kind of light up when a bunch of people heard that and everybody going, yeah, on that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe more people know you from PHP conferences. So let's try that again. You may know this next speaker from the hallway track.
We need W's in the chat.
All right. Please welcome a talented developer, a loving father, and my personal friend for more than 45 years, Josh Copeland.
Wow. I knew you before I was born. Dang. No, I appreciate that intro. That was awesome. Tim's the man, although he's always full of surprises, whether it be a good or bad. But I always have a good time with you when I see you at conferences. So
from that hallway track. All right, well, I'll let you take it away.
All right. So let me share my screen here. Of course, this just took over everything. Hang on 1 second here. Present. Screen share. I hope this, oh no, it's going to ask me to allow. Entire screen. I apologize. Okay. Let me know. Can Tim verbally tell me if you can hear this, because this took over my entire screen. Do you see the words WordOps?
I do see your title slide and I see your face on the left, so we are good to go.
Okay, awesome. All right, so yes, I wanted to do a talk about WordOps. I know, WordPress is one of those reasons I feel like, along with Laravel, that PHP is still in the Laracon as far as languages that are very much alive in the web space. And as much as people Want to shout out the sun saying that PHP is dead as long as WordPress and Laravel are around. That will never change. And so I know typically we like to talk about like very specific PHP related things. This is somewhat of a side quest, if you will, but I wanted to share my experience with those that do deal with WordPress, which, you know, as much as we have a love-hate relationship, if you're, you know, very, you know, under the hood sort of developer, WordPress can somewhat be challenging to work in if you're not familiar with WordPress. But from a management standpoint of WordPress, I've used a lot of tools, cPanel, you know, there's a myriad of them, Easy Engine, WP Engine, and all have their pros and cons. However, with WordOps, I found that this has the most pros and the least cons. So shout out Manny, who is with the Vegas Programmers Meetup, who suggested me taking a look at this last year. And I have switched originally from WP Engine. I went to Easy Engine because WP Engine is very expensive. And obviously, there's been a lot of drama that came up with all of that. Won't get into that on this talk. There's a lot of YouTube videos you can go out there to see about that. But specifically here, I started to run into some issues with Easy Engine. Maybe it's user error. Maybe it's the fact that Easy Engine purely uses Docker to manage your WordPress sites. But what I loved about WordOps is that it truly has the most pros and allowed me as a DevOps person to understand in a cohesive way how it's managing WordPress on the server itself. So we'll dive into that now. Just a little bit of an intro there on why I'm talking about this. But if you don't know me, I've been in the PHP space for quite some time. Spoken at ZenCon back in the day, Longhorn. Not too much outside of the West Coast, unfortunately. I do have to branch out a little bit more. I tried to get over to the Symphony conference that's happening in Chicago, I believe this weekend, for Ryan Weaver. So if you are in the Chicago area, definitely take a look at that. But unfortunately, I won't be able to make that. But I love PHP. It's one of the, well, it was the first web development language that I touched, and had a just true passion for PHP ever since. So, you know, starting from back then, I was dealing in, you know, the good old Zen framework days, spaghetti code PHP, you know, people's great ideas to build their own framework in PHP. I've been through the myriad of things there. And then the renaissance PHP had with both Packagist and Symfony and Laravel and all that good stuff. And of course, WordPress, like we're going to talk about. I'm the CTO here at Remote Dev Force. I do freelance software development. I have been for the last 14 years. I love tinkering around with AI recently. As Tim Bond knows, I built a 100% fully working bot to play this snake game. I'm forgetting the name now, but it was 100% solid and totally worked, and built 100% with AI. That was awesome. And then as far as DevOps is concerned, you know, once you program enough, eventually you're going to have to start tinkering around with servers and stuff. And so, you know, over the last 5 years or so, I've been entrenched in Terraform, AWS, GCP, Azure, all that fun stuff. Not that I'm not bored of programming. I still do it every day. You know, just branching out my software architecting experience. And I think the thing I'm most proud of, aside of my beautiful family here, which you can see this picture, I'm at ComplexCon with my daughter, and she's photobombing me here. We had a good time there. She wants to go again. And yeah, we saw some cool concerts there. It was her first concert. She almost got trampled in a mosh pit, which was fun. But what better memory to be at her first concert there with her. And the other thing I'm most proud of, aside from my family, is PHP Vegas. So I've been running that now for 15 years. Geez. Why? Because when I was in college, there was no meetup, and learning in a silo, which unfortunately in the beginning of my career, I had to just figure everything out myself. Nowadays, y'all are spoiled. You have standards, you have YouTube videos everywhere about everything, you have meetups. But definitely give a pat on the back or look at ways to support your local meetups, because it's not easy. Even through the pandemic, I was doing those every month, to try to keep people and myself sane. But it's a great way to meet people and to learn, most importantly. If you need to contact me, that's my email there. So yeah, great. I'm going to go through all of this again. And there we go. Okay, now to the meat and potatoes of my talk, WordOps. So what is WordOps? Well, like I told you, I've been using a ton of different WordPress site management systems, we'll call it. And a part of the reason I moved from WP Engine was WP Engine's wicked expensive. It's super easy. Like if you don't know how to manage a server, if you're not comfortable with CLI, WP Engine is an option. Although you should look at WordPress.com. There's a lot of other alternatives. But I'm just saying I originally came from that world, and you have to pay every month, right? And you have very little control over what goes on in the server. You're sharing rack space with other people on the same system. You don't have fine-grained control, and as you get more experience over time, you want to start to get your hands dirty and have more control over the destiny of what your server is doing. So I got into Easy Engine, and Easy Engine was great. However, it ran everything in Docker, and I mean everything, like PHP, Nginx was run in Docker, Redis was run in Docker, the htdocs container, like everything was ran in Docker. And one day I ran please run a backup before you do this. But I ran an apt-get update on my Ubuntu box. Actually, it was Debian. And it broke everything. Like it updated the Docker container, like the Docker CE, and everything broke. And I couldn't roll back. And I did have a backup, but it was like 24 hours old, which wasn't the end of the world. Luckily, everything on there was pretty static from then. But anyway, long story short, anytime you're running apt-get update, run a backup. So anyway, I got everything kind of halfway up and working, and then Let's Encrypt wasn't renewing my certs, and I was just like, man, this thing is like super flaky. Again, no knock on Easy Engine, that's still being maintained and stuff to this day. But when I took a look at WordOps, I was like, this is it. And mainly because this took the opinion that instead of using Docker for everything, we should install Nginx PHP natively on the system and just scratch Docker out of the equation, which Docker's great. I use it for local development. If you're having to do super, scaled out systems, using containers, Kubernetes, all that's totally fine with me. But when it's something super simple, like I need a WordPress site, you don't need to horizontally scale the thing most of the time, unless you're running like freaking, some huge e-commerce site or something where you do need to worry about that. Then maybe it's worth paying WP Engine or going to a paid host. But in the case of, hey, all I want to pay is running my web server to AWS, to GCP, and that's the only bill I want, WordOps is great because it's open source, it's free, and it works. Period. It works. So you can see here, they're kind of just showing an example. We'll dive into some other examples, and hopefully I can like do a demo here if I have time. So we'll give that a shot towards the end of this. Let me see how I'm doing on time here. Okay, cool. We're good. All right. So why did I choose WordOps? I kind of dove into some of the reasons here. It's open source. If you wanted to take a look, I have a screenshot here of their GitHub here in a minute. But with Easy Engine, when I was dealing with that chaos, it wasn't being maintained at that time, but it looks like it got picked back up, or maybe they've just made changes recently, or things went dormant for a little bit. But I don't know. I was getting very nervous because I didn't see much updates going to the Easy Engine, and I saw WordOps was getting code pushed to it very frequently. So I was like, okay, I should switch over. So that should be a very important thing when you're taking a look at a technology to use, is has something been pushed to the code base recently. And like I said, I like the fact that it runs Nginx and PHP natively. Why? Because if I need to dive into the configs for either of these, it's just there. I don't need to like go hop into a container or go find where the volume is being mounted for the container to go edit files. I don't need to worry about like all of those kind of like, let's say, abstractions. It's just there, it's installed, and I know how it works. And then I had to migrate my sites from Easy Engine to WordOps, and surprisingly was easy. I thought this was going to be a pain in the butt. I was real worried about migrating to WordOps, and I was blown away by how easy it was. I thought it was going to be a few days for me to migrate all my sites. I was done within like a day. I mean, like 3 or 4 hours, and I had everything moved over. That was awesome. And I'm actually going to show you how to migrate your own sites too. So be prepared to maybe screenshot or just take a timestamp on the video of those commands that you can run to migrate. Because I think the documentation somewhat, I'll show you here in a minute, but I had to migrate differently than what the doc said just because of my use case. So we'll go into that here in a second. What's super cool about WordOps is their admin dashboard. At the very end of the slides, I have a demo that will dive into that. Super cool. Like probably my favorite feature, to be honest, of WordOps is this admin dashboard. And if you're not using Let's Encrypt, you should be by now. I mean, it's free. How can you complain about free? But yes, they renew every 3 months. And best of yet, they auto renew. Like I said, with Easy Engine, I was running the scenarios where I had to run these crons to like update the certs and like do all this stuff I felt like was unnecessary. I felt like whatever I should use should just auto renew it. Why do I need to worry about going onto the server and running a command to renew the certs every 3 months? So this just does it, and it just works. So the features that I kind of talked about here, first of all, it's super easy to install. If you're not like super CLI, comfortable with CLI, then don't worry too much. I think it's still, as long as you know how to run system updates and you know how to run a couple of bash commands, that's really all you need here. It's definitely not super difficult to get this up and running on a server. It's super fast when it comes to deployments, and everything just runs on one box. So, scaling is somewhat easy. It's just vertical scaling at that point. You're just making the box bigger. I think I was running like a medium, and that was completely fine. But now I run like, I think 6 sites. One of the sites is pretty decent traffic. So I bumped it up a little bit. So, I'm kind of paying around what WP Engine would charge, but that would be for one site. I'm running multiple sites for that same cost that was getting charged with for WP Engine, right? Their engine, haven't looked at this too much, but their Nginx build is said to be custom. I don't know exactly what that means. Broadly support HTTP3. I be 100% honest with you guys, I don't quite understand what Broadly is or anything like that. But cool, it's custom built and it's probably good. Again, I don't need to worry about installing all of that stuff and trying to keep my Nginx hardened and all that kind of stuff. And going into the next one, it's secure, right? It comes with the admin dashboard, super cool because it gives you a lot of like Nginx insights that I'll show you here at the end. But you have the ability to kind of swap out a lot of these different services too, as I'll show you here in a minute. So if you don't like Redis, you like Memcache better, you can swap those. If you don't like PHPMyAdmin and you like Admineer, you can swap those. It's very flexible in the tool set that is available to you. And again, it's just installing the stuff natively on the server. So if you have extra stuff you need to install alongside of your WordPress sites, it's just there. It's just on the server. You don't need to go into a Docker container and change its container or whatever. And then we talked about Let's Encrypt. That's awesome. There's the monitoring component we'll talk about here in a little bit. And it's modern, which, yes, it's true. This is just like copy pasta, but the main thing I wanted to show here was the different PHP versions here, right? We've got 7.4 all the way to 8.4. Out of the box, if you install this, it's just going to be running 8.4. And then it'll install MariaDB and Redis and Nginx for you. But you can see here that's kind of reiterating some of the things that we saw previously. But one of the things I wanted to show is just, there's a ton of stars on the repo. That's another thing I look at if I'm going to use something from GitHub. And, they pushed code last month. That's a good sign. Most importantly, they release stable versions every June and December. So last December, they released 3.2.2. And at least they have on paper when they're supposed to be releasing stable releases. So that's good. So as I mentioned, this is the stack that gets installed when you run the installation. We've got that custom version of Nginx. We've got PHP FBM. Good news is let's say you have an old WordPress site that requires, 8.1 or something like that. It's you're able to, switch it. And we'll get into here too. You don't just need to run WordPress on this. You can just run a PHP site as well. So if we have time towards the end of the talk here, I'm going to actually try to do it live. I love that. Install a empty PHP website and create a hello world and see if we can kind of get things going without WordPress at all. Just create an empty PHP site sort of thing. So it's not just a WordPress management, but let's say you run multiple Laravel sites or multiple Symfony sites or just multiple I wrote my own framework and I'm a genius sites. Then you can use this to create shells, if you will, for your sites and manage your websites that way on one server. Again, to save money. If you have the luxury to spin up as many servers as you want and keep things isolated, go for it. I wish I was in your boat. MariaDB. I don't know. I like MySQL. It uses MariaDB. I like MariaDB as well. There's the whole, thing of as to why MariaDB split off. I won't get into that, but MariaDB is awesome. I will say I had MySQL originally in Easy Engine and went to MariaDB and the database import went flawlessly. So I had no export import issues, if you will, between the two. I also didn't check cardinality and consistency of the database after, but it just, when I loaded the site, it worked. So that probably means everything's okay, right? Yeah, I can hear the database administrators right now cringing. Redis, you can also use that memcache. I think there's another one too, but there's a caching layer. This is super important for WordPress because you can cache objects and pages and make WordPress faster. WordPress can be bloated at times, but Redis definitely speeds things up. If you haven't used WP-CLI, I got to the game late with WP-CLI because I was doing things very manually before I learned about this tool. But basically, it's just a CLI tool you can use that's provided by WordPress to do WordPress administrative stuff. So let's say you forgot your password to your WordPress site. You can use WP-CLI to create a new user or reset your password or all kinds of things. And as we'll see here in a little bit, I use WP-CLI to import the database from my old site to my new site. I got to check out this net data thing more. There's an admin dashboard that comes with this that is just truly probably the best feature, in my opinion, with WordOps. But NetData is awesome. I'm very curious if I can just install NetData like on a production server or some sort of, and just like expose it internally only. But as you'll see here, if this is what the admin dashboard stuff does, super cool. I'll show you here in a little bit. You can, although I haven't done it yet, use get to manage the WP config versioning. And then there's also phpMyAdmin adminier. I'm kind of a SQL CLI junkie. I like to just use my SQL command right in the CLI and run stuff. But, my phpMyAdmin guy, I used it back in the day too. I mean, phpMyAdmin's great. Super simple. So it's there if you want it. It runs on basically Linux. So sorry, Windows folks, but you're SOL on this one. Ubuntu and Debian are going to be your flavors. And I guess they're tinkering around with running it on a Raspberry Pi, supposedly. Raspbian, right? That's Raspberry Pis, I believe. So I don't know if you maybe wanted to run a WordPress site in your house to blog about your kids, then maybe you could do that. But I used to run Debian, but recently I switched to Ubuntu just because I'm like, if something goes wrong, it's probably easier for me to find like Stack Overflows and stuff like that about Ubuntu versus Debian. But for my sysadmins out there, I mean, Debian's the best. I wish I stuck with it because I bet it's probably better. But I don't know. Maybe it's the same. So how to install this WordOps thing? Well, here you go. You run these two commands. The first command is to install WordOps, wget. There's this, definitely not sus wops.cc URL here. And then you just run sudo bash wo. And that basically is just calling the WordOps script to run and installs everything. Installs Nginx, PHP, installs the CLI for WordOps, which is wo command. We'll see the WCLI one is WP, but WordOps, you'll be using WO for everything. And then the second command here is to create a site. So if you were to create a site, let's say you're not migrating a WordPress site, you want to create a brand new WordPress site. This is the command you would run. Sudo wo site create your domain name and then --WP. That --WP flag is basically saying set up WordPress. As we'll see here in a little bit, there are various flags to do different things. But generically, if you were to install a fresh site, you would do this. I will say if you're migrating sites, take a look at the command I'll show here in a little bit because you're not going to want to use this. So this is what I did to migrate a site. At the end here, when we start tinkering around on the server, I want to show you what WordOps shows as a migration strategy. But what I ended up doing veered off from what they had, and I'll explain that later. But for now, this is exactly what I did. So I exported all of my files and my database from my old site. So that basically means just, going, and running a SQL export, getting your SQL file, and then, finding the directory with all of your htdocs and the WordPress files, and then copying those either down to your local machine or to the new server. The whole thing I was talking about with the flags with the WordOps command, you can run wo site create, the new, your domain name of the site that you're migrating. And then during this time, I forgot, I think what I did is I switched the DNS like right before I did this. That way Let's Encrypt would work. But you can alternatively run this without Let's Encrypt, just do port 80 and then flip it back if you want to get fancy. But here you can just run the key here about this command is this --vhost only. So what that means, instead of that --wp, --vhost only creates a virtual host in Nginx, but does not pull down WordPress code into your directory for htdocs. So you're going to have an empty directory there. Reason being I didn't want to do that is if I installed WordPress and then overwrote it with my old WordPress files, things could get kind of weird. Like, let's say if it installed something that wasn't on my old one, or something didn't get overwritten, or something had a different name, things can get kind of strange. So I took the approach of let me start from scratch in the new server and just simply move over everything. The one caveat here is this --wp Redis. That is a plugin for WordPress to cache things and make WordPress faster. So just caveat there that's what that WP Redis thing is. Here's an rsync command. I've been using SCP and just recently found out that SCP is terrible. It literally, every time you SCP a file in a directory, it has to make a new connection. And I didn't know that. And like I don't know. People have been telling me for like 10 years to use rsync, and for some reason I've just been stuck in my ways with SCP. But I finally bit the bullet. I'm like, let me rsync this, because it was taking forever. I was like, I'm doing this wrong. I know I am. So here's the command here. I can't explain these AVZH flags, but if I had to guess, probably verbosity, show me logs, and compress, I think is the Z, whatever. I don't know. But the -- progress shows where you're at with copying. -- ignore existing. I think basically like if it failed halfway through, you could restart it and it wouldn't be like starting over again. It would just kind of skip everything that was the same file. And then I basically have source destination, right? So the source was my old server. I went onto my new server. I put in the SSH keys so that way the two servers could talk to each other. That way I didn't need to like pull down the files to my machine and put them onto the new server. I literally just like spun up a new server, exchanged SSH keys so both could talk to each other, and then just ran this rsync to pull the files straight over. So the first source here was Easy Engine that I migrated from. You can see that because I have the term old server here, it would be your host. So the IP address, your host of your old server, whatever it is, right? Colon, and then the directory. And you could do the same for destination, by the way. Like you could put the IP of the server or the host, example.com, colon, and then the directory inside of there that you're copying to, right? In this case, I was on the new server and running this command, so I didn't need to specify where to copy it to because that was locally. So opt easy engine sites. That opt easy engine sites directory is where all the Docker containers were kind of like storing all the files, right? So Docker was running and had all these like mounts from these site directories here into Docker. And again, I don't know, user error, but things got weird there. But anyway, I just copied straight from the htdocs in the old server straight to the new htdocs in the new server running WordOps. Then we have the files copied over, but we need to actually now get the database copied over. So this is where you'll need to run an export, like I mentioned at the first step here. I didn't put the command here. I should, well, maybe because I was using a password or something, but it's not hard. You can run an export multiple ways where the user phpMyAdmin, or just go on Google, use MySQL CLI to do an export of the database. It's not difficult. But I essentially had a .SQL file, move that over to the new server as well. One caveat here is the WP config file has all the configs for your WordPress site. That originally was in the, I had to kind of like move that separately. So I just have a bullet point here that makes sure you have that WP config in the right spot. So on the new server, that would be var www, the domain name / and put the WP config file in there. And then finally, we have our actual import. This is where the WP CLI comes into play. So you can see here at the very bottom, I'm running WP, which is the WordPress CLI. Then there's a subcommand DB that has different database actions I can do from there, which one of them is import. So you can see here, I ran WP DB import, and then the name of the SQL file that I dumped from the original server, and -- allow root. I don't know why I did that, but it's there. Probably because it needed it to actually like run MySQL, right, or something like that. But that got me going. That imported everything, and it just worked, which was fantastic. I didn't need to like go in there and change things or whatever. And in fact, one of the sites I forgot the password to, I just used this WP CLI to reset the password on the new server, and I was rocking and rolling. So that's how I migrated. Well, at the end here, I'll show you like a quote unquote easier way, but it's really more on the lines if you're running Easy Engine on the same server that you're installing this on. In my case, Easy Engine was running some wicked old version of Debian that I didn't want to like upgrade in place and all of that because I tried and things got wrecked. That I wanted to spin up a new server. But they do have a migrate command that we'll show here at the end, that if you did have Easy Engine and WordOps installed in the same server, you can just run one command to do all of that moving files and moving database stuff for you. You don't need to worry about all of that complicated stuff I just showed you. But I just wanted to show you what I did because that may help somebody, and I like helping. All right, so here are the various commands and subflags you can use for WordPress. And so we can see here the very first one just installs WordPress with the current PHP release. So in this case, 8.4, I believe, is what they have currently. And then we have ways that we can change that. If for some reason our WordPress site still only ran on 8.3 or whatever, we can use this --PHP 8.1 or 8.2 or whatever flag to install a different version of PHP FPM. In that case, you'll have multiple PHP FPMs running on your server. So just be careful with that a little bit. Another caveat, when I installed PHP FPM, I personally went into the FPM configs and bumped the worker count up myself because I had a very beefy server and I wanted to give PHP FPM more threads to work with. So that's the beauty though, right? It's not in Docker, it's installed natively. So you can just go straight to the the PHP FPM config, update your pool config, and restart FPM, and boom, you're done, right? You no need to like go into a Docker container and try to figure out how to make that persist through the life of Docker or whatever. And then some other things here, you've got WPFC, like if you want to use fast CGI. There's another one for the Redis cache that we showed in the beginning, WP Redis. There's a WP Rocket plugin. I'd be 100% honest with you, I don't know what that is, but we'll find out here at the end. I'll Google it. And then we've got a WPCE cache enabler, and then a super cache plugin, which I have used a super cache plugin one before. Personally, I think you can just get away with WP Redis, call it a day. But maybe if you want to be like super optimizy, WP super cache, I think gives you more fine-grained control over what to cache and when to cache and all that good stuff. Not a huge fan of multi-site, but you can do multi-site WordPress as well with this. So, you know, basically if you have like a WordPress site that has like multiple domains and they all kind of run together and stuff like that, you can do that with WordOps too. I'm not going to dive into all of these. It's pretty much just repeating the same thing we saw anyway, but it does it. I don't understand what subdirectory versus subdomain is. Maybe, oh, okay. No, rubber ducky, me talking about it, I literally just figured it out. So multi-site, you can set up multi-site in two ways. You can have example.com/site1 for a website, site2/site2/site3, right? With this subdomain, you would have site1.example.com, site2.example.com. So there, talk through your problems. It will help. And then what we're going to try here at the end, just because I'm feeling frisky, is we're going to try and install like an empty PHP site. So before this talk, I just pointed a brand new domain name at this server. And we're just going to like try and spin up like an 8.4 container FPM. And let's just try like make a, we're not going to install Laravel and do all that. We'll just throw, a dot index and see if we could just get it working sort of thing here for the talk, but that'll be fun. And then we can also do the -- MySQL, which is cool because if we do WordOps site create our new domain name -- MySQL, it will also create a MySQL database for us to utilize with that new site. So most applications are going to need a database. This is a great way to just boom. And as you run it, it will give you the username and password for the database. So you can throw that into your .env or whatever. I'm not going to run that one because you little hackers out there are going to copy the password and somehow figure out how to hack me. And then I'm going to have a bad day. So I'm not going to run that one, but we'll run the PHP 8.4 and you'll still figure out a way to hack me and I'll still have a bad day, but whatever. We're doing it because we do it for the game, right? And then you can also set up a proxy. So if you were to use Nginx as a reverse proxy, meaning like, I don't know, you've got like HA proxy in front of this thing or a load balancer or whatever, you could get fancy with it. We're not going to do that, but it can do that. Let's say you don't use PHP or you want to create a site that's just straight up HTML. I don't know, you're using Django or one of these just compile straight to HTML things like Merge PHP, actually. mergephp.com. Shout out, I think Tim and whoever else built that. He can scold me as to who put that together, but it's just like a static HTML compiler. You could do that with this. You can create an empty site that uses Let's Encrypt, that keeps the thing updated, that just has an empty htdocs for you to deploy your HTML to and call it a day. And then one thing I wanted to highlight is just how super simple it is to switch versions. So we can see that there's a site update command, and you would give your domain. And then there's these flags like --PHP 7.4, --PHP 8.0. So if we upgraded, let's say we have a site that's been running 8.3 and we're finally ready to try to switch to 8.4, we can just run this update command 8.4, test things. If things don't work, super easy to just roll back, right? We run the same command, put 8.3, and we're back to what we were on. Quite easy from a systems administrative perspective. No need to jump into PHP configs and comment things out and put things back and all that. Just run a command, right? And then a little bit about Let's Encrypt. So, you can use the -LE, which I recommend. Again, if you are going to be using this in a production environment, you're going to want SSL. So run, the WordPress install with the -LE command, and that will give you Let's Encrypt. You can also use this with subdomain. So if you have like site1.example.com, same thing, and you could create multiple sites running multiple subdomains this way. It also supports HSTS, which is a more strict SSL config for Nginx hosts and all that. And then there's also Cloudflare DNS support. So you can use this wildcard SSL certificate here with Cloudflare by running the LE = wildcard and then DNS = DNSCF, meaning Cloudflare. So I've never used wildcards with Let's Encrypt, but it looks like there's a way that you could do that with Cloudflare's DNS API. So that's cool. All right, and then we're getting towards the end here. We are going to attempt to break my live sites right now by running an update of WordOps. And then this will be a true test as to whether switching to WordOps was a good idea for me or not. And then one last slide I want to show here, which is the admin dashboard. And this is where you say, ooh, because when you install WordOps, this dashboard comes out of the box for you. This is that net data thing I was talking about earlier. And holy cow, this thing is cool. When I was running my old server, I would have very little insight as to what my server load average was. If my site looks slow, is it a RAM problem? Is it a CPU problem? Am I getting hit by bot traffic? I was flying in the dark. I would have to go onto the server, run free-m, or go onto AWS and look at graphs or whatever, pain in the butt. With this, you can just hop on there, immediately see how many connections are hitting you. And I'll show you here because there's actually a demo site that WordOps has that we'll take a look at, and we'll pop around there a little bit. So let's do that first. And then I'm going to attempt to break my site by updating. And then after we update, if everything still works, we are going to create an empty PHP site. So let's do that. First off, let me just show you the administrative panel that I was talking about here. So this right here, let's do a little refresh. This is a demo site that WordOps has. So if you go to wordops.net and you click this demo link right here, it takes you straight to this administrative panel, which is super cool, right? So again, is my site being hammered or not right now? Why are things slow? We can just look at the load average and we see, oh, we're under 1, so that's good. Is my CPU being clobbered? How much RAM do I have available? What's my disk usage look like? Am I running out of, space on my hard drive, sort of thing? So this gives you a very bird's eye view as to what's going on with your server, which is fantastic, right? And even in the database world, this is where phpMyAdmin, adminer, this is your access points essentially if you want to hop into your database to poke around at columns and all that good stuff. You can just click on these and open up the admin for those straight from here. By the way, this is password protected, this the admin dashboard. I would recommend only whitelisting it to your IP as well, because it does run on a strange port. It's not just 80 or 443. It runs on this 22222 port or whatever it is. And then in your security group, just block that port just to your IP at home or wherever you're going to be accessing it from, to give it that extra layer of security so people can't hop in here. And then, which I was surprised that this demo right here is just wide open. They must just have this running in some sandbox, obviously. So I pray for them. And then, like I mentioned, the cache layers, they have Memcache, Redis, but then there's also the opcache component for PHP. And then here we've got PHP. It looks like they are running 7.2 and 7.3, so they need to update this server. It's pretty old. But yeah, if you run multiple PHP FPMs, this is where you can kind of see all the versions you have installed. You get a super quick way to look at your PHP info, right? If you've never seen this before, this is awesome, right? This gives you a really fine grained control over to see how is my stuff configured. When you start getting to the I need to optimize sort of stage of your development, this is where you'll hop in here. Even if you're using Xdebug and you're what are my why isn't this working or whatever, just open up your PHP info and take a look. And then you can also look at your status. This kind of just gives you like, okay, how many of my FPM things are running? Are they processing things? How many children? That sort of thing. And then on the Nginx front, there is one for that as well. So this Nginx VTS one here, this shows the virtual host traffic status. Super cool. Never knew this existed until I started messing around with WordOps, but gives you a real, again, bird's eye view as to how many requests this thing has handled, how many active connections you've got going right now. Just a lot of, nerdy detail you can get here with like your responses and all that good stuff. So yeah. So looks like this site had 1,152 200 responses, which is great. But it looks like we did have one 500 response, which is bad. So this is cool. Kind of gives you an idea as to, is my site bombing out left and right or whatever. But hopefully you're using something like Sentry or something to really notify you if you're getting 500s or whatever. But anyways, you can see super, super cool. Totally dig this. I got to read more into like this thing here, net data, because I think that's what this is. Basically, this admin dashboard is, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not completely certain. So I would have to dig more into this. But anyway, that's that. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to show was the migration documentation. So they do have great documentation here for how to use, WordOps. But there is a button here that I got excited about when I was on Easy Engine, and I was like, oh, I can just use this to migrate my sites. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to run this on my existing site. Like I want or existing server. I want a new server running a new version of my operating system and like just ditch the old one. So that's what I did. So this is more for if you're running Easy Engine and you're installing WordOps on the same server, you can run this, right? So again, you would run the install, and I believe this is where during the installation, it would detect, hey, you have Easy Engine sites on here, and it like prompts you, do you want to migrate these, which is awesome. Otherwise, if it's like after the fact or whatever, you skip them, you can also do it like post update. So here you can see like running site update, then the domain name. This is where you can migrate the site, and it'll detect the Easy Engine directory and kind of move things for you. It also kind of gives you like, hey, this is what it used to be versus what it's going to be in the new deal, and then giving you some commands to remove the old versions of FPM running on your system. And then some database update stuff too if you're running that locally. But again, I would recommend just like going from an old server to a new server, because even if you fully uninstall Easy Engine, there's probably going to be a lot of like artifacts left over unless you really went through a fine-tooth comb and like tried to remove everything. So anyway, I haven't looked like around all the different kind of things as far as like, what it supports. I've seen some things about like DigitalOcean. Again, like they have great documentation here. If you have questions about particular commands, you can read all that stuff here. Like for example, the logs for your WordPress site. If you want to see like logs, you can just run the wo logs command. If you want to put your site into maintenance mode, you can do that with this command. So definitely take a look at the documentation if you are using this, because it has pretty good docs as far as how to use those commands. And then, so that's pretty much it for like the documentation side of things. Now, what I want to do is we are going to attempt to do it live. And what I mean by that is I want to try and prove if this was a good idea to move to WordOps or not by running the wo update command. So again, with Easy Engine, I tried updating Easy Engine and it broke everything. I like completely wrecked my system, okay? And I just installed WordOps probably like 2 months ago. So although I love WordOps, still hasn't necessarily been like battle tested in the sense of, okay, now let's update things and see if things break. So let's give it a shot. I'm literally going to do it on my production server right now. And luckily, it's no like clients running on this. This is just my personal sites and stuff like that. So if things break, I'm not like breaking the world. I'm just like ruining my night of trying to get things working again. So let's give it a shot. So first off, let's. I'm wondering if we should run apt-get update first, or if we should run the wo. Well, let's try that. Let's try wo update. Let's do that one first. Hey, we're already on the newest version. Cool. We're done there. Awesome. Now let's do the other scarier thing, which is apt-get update and apt-get upgrade. And we got a bunch of stuff we need to install. It looks like mainly PHP things. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll gut check one of my sites and see if things still work. And if not, we are mad at WordOps. But, well, we're not mad at WordOps. We're mad at Ubuntu, I think, in this case. So apt-get changes, whatever. Whatever that said is totally cool and definitely won't break everything. Let's open up my remote dev force site here, and that's what we'll monitor to make sure that the website is still working. Post.com. Okay, we only have like a couple minutes left here. I think typically we run this till 6:30, don't we? Or 5:30, I mean, Pacific. I know some of you guys are in different time zones. Okay, so yeah, here's my site. It's running update right now. I'm running this in GCP, which is probably why all this Google stuff is here. But yeah, anyway. The other thing we're going to try is the whole creating a new empty PHP site. So after this is done running, let's give that a shot and see if that works. In the meantime, I am looking at the YouTube chat. If you have questions, drop them in the chat here, and I'll be happy to answer it. So keeping an eye on that, and I don't see any. Yeah, Battlesnake. Okay, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I was saying that AI bot I built Battlesnake, and I don't know why I forgot the name of that, but I remember playing Snake on my Nokia, and that was legit. I wish phones still had press like keys, because I could type on that thing without looking at the keyboard. I feel like when we went to iPhones, there was like way more car accidents because now you had to look at your phone. All right, anyway, sidetracked here. Boom. Okay, we're done, right? Like it updated stuff. It let's just make sure PHP FPM restarted. Sudo service PHP. I don't even need to do sudo because we already root. So let's just do service PHP 83 FPM restart. Did I get that? Okay, yeah, we're good. If just a little thing here, if you don't want to like kick users off of your site, I would recommend running reload, because what reload would do is if people are still processing requests, it will create new threads and then like keep the old ones alive until requests are done. Restart like just kills everything and restarts it. So that was not a good idea to run that. But anyway, little tidbit there. Okay, so now that we got PHP FPM done, let's see, is my website still working? And it is. Hey, I thought I had, oh, I got rid of the video on it because somebody was telling me, why do you have a video on your site? So yeah, cool. All right, that worked. Now, what we're going to try to do is make an empty PHP site. So let's refer back to the docs here on the command that we need to run. So in fact, what I like to do, the docs are great, but on GitHub, there's a whole list of commands on GitHub that is super nice to look at. So if you just scroll down on their GitHub, you can see all those commands that I was showing you earlier here. And then this non-WordPress site section is what we're looking at. So let's run wo site create example.com and then PHP. But here's what we're also going to do. We're going to try to use Let's Encrypt too. So we're going to run this --PHP, but we're going to do -LE to try to get like a cert out of the box with this as well. I'm going to skip the MySQL one because that's definitely going to spit out like a password, and albeit you probably need to be on the server to even access it. I don't want any passwords that I need to like worry about for this stream for you DEF CON people. So we're going to run this guy here. And then I've already pre-pointed a domain name called bitabout.com. No, not getabout, bitabout. This was supposed to be a blog about comedy, hence bit, like a bit in comedy. Anyway, I never got around to it. This is my ADD and scattered brain where I get like a new business idea every day. But anyway, I got this domain name. I just pointed it at the IP address of this new server. But you can see Nginx is just kind of catching all right now, and it's just saying, hey, welcome to Nginx. So I'm getting the default response, and it's not secure. So this is port 80 right now serving this up. So we know my domain is pointed correctly at the server, but we haven't set anything up on there yet. So we need to run this guy. So let's go ahead. Let's pull up my CLI. And let's run. Let's paste that in here. Let's change the domain name here. Bitabout. And we're going to do -LE also, because we want to see if we can get Let's Encrypt working out of the box with this. So let's run that. And now we can see it ran some pre-update checks. It ran the Nginx config, so it configured Nginx. It set up the web root. This is the htdocs directory. I'll show you where that is here in a minute. Then it tested the configs. It reloaded Nginx. It says, hey, we created it. High five. Then the -LE stuff kicks in. Let's encrypt. Okay. That's where it starts to go, okay, let's get the SSL cert with the Acme script. Let's install your cert. Let's add it to the HTTP, or let's redirect HTTP to HTTPS, and let's reconfigure Nginx. I just saved myself like 2 hours of work just now, by the way. Like if I were to do all this manually, forget about it, right? So super, super cool. But does it work? Well, let's see. We probably haven't, there's literally nothing in there. So I fully suspect this is just either a blank page or 4.3. Okay. That's okay. That's probably because we have no index in there. Let's try it. Let's try to add an index. So let's just zoom in a little bit more for you folks. So var wwws, and this is where all of your websites will be. So all the domains that you have installed here. In my case, about bitabout, this is where bitabout is. And inside this directory is where you're going to see this tree of different things. We have our config, this conf directory. This is where your Nginx config is. So if you look in here and I take a look at this Nginx config, or excuse me, it's inside here. Nginx, and then cat SSL conf. This is the Nginx config for our SSL certificate. So you can see here, this is where my Let's Encrypt cert got installed, you know, and it just configured all this stuff for me. I didn't have to think about it. There's also like an Nginx config in the root of etc Nginx that has like more stuff. So again, it's like, this is just a piece of the Nginx config. The actual root of Nginx, like in etc Nginx, like this directory here, right? All that stuff's in there. So like sites available, like, so again, if you're very comfortable with Nginx or PHP FPM, all of those sorts of configs are in the usual spots. You don't need to go like chasing those down to figure out where everything is, right? But just this bit about the Let's Encrypt piece is in here. So I just wanted to show that real quick. And then by the way, in this directory usually is where you'll put your WP config. So if like we installed a WordPress site instead, we would see the WP config in here. And then in htdocs, this is where we can put all of our PHP files. So this is where we would deploy our, project, our Symphony project, Laravel project, whatever, CodeIgniter. In this case, let's just do something super simple. Let's just create an index.php and let's try to do, a hello world here. So PHP echo chat GPT builds the best rattlesnake. All right. Now let's see. I don't think that'll work probably because of the permissions deal right now. I need to probably churn this over to dub. So let's do that real quick. Okay, now let's give it a shot. Will it work? Hey, and I spelled the wrong, which is classic for me, by the way. So, sweet, that worked. So this is how you can see like how we would install like a bare bones PHP site. Let's do this though. Since we have a few minutes here, let's try to install WordPress real quick. That is definitely going to show like passwords and stuff, but I'll quickly delete the site after. So that way I don't need to stress over that. So WO site. By the way, if you ever want to see the list of commands, you just don't put the actual subcommand here, or just put --help, and you can see the list of subcommands here. So in this case, let's delete our site. So let's do whoa site delete and then bitabout.com. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yep, get rid of it, and it's gone. If we go back, refresh, yeah, it's like completely broken, which is probably fine. All right, let's try to do WordPress, shall we? Let's do the same create command, create. And instead of this, let's do WP and see what that looks like. So same deal, do Nginx, but then downloading WordPress, setting up the database. Here's your WordPress admin user. Here's the admin password. First person in the chat to log into my site and deface the front of it wins a trip to jail. And let's see, we've got Nginx and all the usual, right? We've got Let's Encrypt doing its thing. And now if we go to bitabout, we can see, it's a WordPress site. And to log in, that's where we would go to WP admin and plug in the logins that we had there. They're right here. I know you guys are already trying to get in, and too bad because I already deleted it. Cool. So yeah, you can see WordOps is super cool. And again, all while giving me super detailed information about, the what the server is actually doing, right? Because we have that admin dashboard. And that's, again, one of my favorite features about this is now that I'm, running a shared vhost, if you will, with multiple WordPress sites and a couple of like one-off PHP things. This gives me super, fine-grained control over that. And also, if you just need to like go check on something real quick, there's a file manager that uses this Explorer thing, right? Like we could use this actually like without maybe like, let's say we're not at home or don't have the SSH keys to get on your server. There's still ways that you can kind of, use these tools here to side skirt into the server. And there's a lot of support. You can find them on Mastodon, GitHub. Their GitHub is real great. They have a chat, a forum, all that good stuff. So that is it for my WordPress or WordOps talk. I do have another talk coming up in a couple of months that I hope to give at some point later this year about starting a SaaS with Laravel. There's a couple of projects out there like open SaaS and some paid products out there that have inspired me to create an open source version of something that allows you to create a software as a service very quickly and bootstrap that and not have to pay for a template. So stay tuned for that. I'll be releasing that later. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching the talk here. I know it's not the most exciting thing with WordPress in this case, but I will say this is probably the next best thing that has come out for managing WordPress sites. So thank you. Do we have any questions in the chat, by the way? I'm trying to keep tabs here and I'm not seeing anything. So I assume everybody is all excited about WordOps and already installed it and playing around with it. No? Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching the talk. Be sure to connect with me. I'm on Mastodon, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find me there. If you want to reach out to me, josh@remotedevforce.com. If you do have any projects that you need worked on by some real sharp PHP developers, I have a ton of onshore PHP developers ready to work on projects. We specialize in Symfony, Laravel, and also do a lot of DevOps things as well if you need that sort of expertise. And we're starting to get into AI too, which is a lot of fun. In fact, there might be a computer vision talk related to the whole open SaaS thing that I wanted to talk about later this year. So stay tuned for all of that. I'm working on some big things and I'm super excited about it. Be sure to check out, I don't 100% know if it's happening, but if Longhorn happens this year, I will 100% go, whether as a speaker and attendee, but that is an awesome conference. I definitely recommend keeping tabs on that. So hopefully Ian's cooking that up, but we shall see. Okay, I guess, do we have any of the co-organizers that want to hop on the stage? And do you have any questions? I see Chris, Mark, Tim, Derek, you guys are on here, but there's Chris. Hey. You guys have any, hey. So what did you guys think about it?
Pretty neat. It's amazing what you can do there so quick. It saves so much time.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of DevOps stuff, but it's super helpful to see how you're doing that and what's involved.
Yeah. What did you think, Chris?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. That's like kind of like Mark. It's not a realm I'm in much, but I'm glad there's like really good tools for stuff like that. You can pass along to somebody else who might need it or get involved with. So I appreciate your talk. Very, very informative.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. Any other like announcements we missed in PHP? I know Tim kind of zipped through things, but I haven't been keeping tabs lately, like on the whole PHP news front. But anything big happening here in the next month or so? Let's see. When's 8.4? Oh no, 8.4 is already out. Has 9 been discussed yet? Let's see, RFCs.
I feel like I saw
8.5 is currently what's being chatted about, it looks like. So there's RFCs open for 8.5. So that's the next one that's going to come soon, it looks like. That's exciting. Have you guys started using like attributes and stuff like that? Like instead of like old school annotations with comments and stuff, like using the new like hashtag stuff and all that?
Not yet. Or we're talking about moving up at work, coming up, sometime before too long. But we haven't started into those kind of features and stuff yet.
Yeah, you would think there's probably a way to like auto convert, if that makes sense. Like just take a look at my old school annotations and like convert them to the new ones. So like just running like some, kind of like a Laravel shift sort of style where he just goes through and like updates things. You would think like that, if something like that doesn't exist, you would think that would probably be a good idea. But yeah, the new annotation stuff is pretty sweet. I know, and it saves time because I think the old comment style had to do a lot of like, slow mirroring in the code and stuff like that. What's up, Derek?
Sorry, I'm still kind of a noob when it comes to StreamYard. I couldn't figure out how to get on the stage.
I had the same problem. Don't worry about it.
And I figured it out. I have used attributes actually. I think they're pretty cool. I actually have a project I'm working on right now where I have a bunch of enums, like PHP enums, and I have, like, there are certain cases where I want to actually display the value of that enum, but the value is something that gets put into the database. So I have an attribute that I add to the case on the enum that is just called display name. And then you just pass in whatever you want the display name to be for that case. And so and then I also have I have the same thing for colors. So like if I want to show a specific color that's mapped to a certain case in the enum, then I have that set up as well. It's pretty smooth. I mean, you can always, like, you don't have to use attributes to do that kind of stuff. Like, you can just put a function in the enum that just like has a match on it, match, and then just have it mapped to whatever. But it's it's just a little bit cleaner to not have to add a function into your enum every time you want to do something like that.
Yeah. It seems like making your own attributes could be super helpful as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Laravel has a bunch of them. Has a bunch of attributes that you can use to do different things. Like if you want to, I'm trying to think of a specific one, but like I think like if you want to add an observer onto a model, there's an attribute for that now. Or Livewire. I don't know if you've played with Livewire at all, but Livewire has like in their Livewire objects, you can put attributes on for validation of the field. So like you're using an attribute to add the validation rules for a particular field in the object. And so, yeah, it's some of the things that I've seen happening with them is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I know with Doctrine is what I mainly had experience with the attribute stuff, because everything used to be in comments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like in November 8.5 is scheduled to release. So that's cool. That should be around hopefully the time of Longhorn, if that's going to happen this year. So awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat here, so I appreciate everybody hopping on. Again, we don't have the next talk from Alina yet, but when we do, we'll be sure to announce it here. If you do want to do a talk, we always love to have new speakers come in and give talks, and we're always looking for that. So if you do want to give a talk, you can head over to Merge PHP and click on the Submit a Talk button, mergephp.com. There's also, and I'll drop the link here in the chat, there's mphp.io/speakers. That also gets you straight to the speaker form as well. At least it should. Let me double check that it does.
It's a great chance to do a dry run if you're submitting to another conference, or if you submitted to a conference didn't get accepted, you still want to get your experience and presentation out. You can send to us, and we'll get you in the queue.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like, never do a talk dry. Like, either run it at a user group locally, or if you're running out of time, we always have Merge PHP around happening every month. So just drop the link here, and you can see it in YouTube there, mphp.io/speakers. There's a form there that I think Logan gets. I'm not sure who that goes to. Got to double check with him. But you can take a look at that and submit your talk ideas. We love to have, even if it's PHP adjacent, we'd love to take a look at what you guys want to talk about, because there's a lot going on. And having different perspectives about things is always fantastic. So cool. Well, I think that concludes this month's meetup. Thanks again for everybody that hopped on, and we will catch you next month. Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you guys later.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Josh.